Professor Frenkel, let me cut to the chase. Joe Stiglitz talked about globalization and its discontents. We have globalization and Mr. Putin's discontent or Mr. Putin's grievances. What will come after?
Well, remember, since the collapse of the Soviet Union in the early 1990s, the entire world was excited to embrace Russia, to embrace China, to bring them into the group of nations. The G7 has become G8, the G20, WTO, the World Trade Organizations, all brought them in, and both China and Russia have benefited immensely from being integrated into the world. This has been a great period, which unfortunately, during the past few years, with the emergence of the trade war, and now with the invasion of the Ukraine, has inverted it all back. Russia will end up being much poorer. They are suffering on a day in and day out. They are isolated. They are secluded financially, economically, politically. And the question now is, how will the world look like thereafter? I think that, unfortunately, to my mind, the globalization will be part of the legacy of the past, and we will now move to a new world order in which democracies of the type of the US and Europe will be on one side, and other autocratic countries like China and Russia will be on the other end.
But Jacob, how do we get to that place, considering the intertwining of the supply chains, as we've seen, that we still haven't moved away from? Even with the pandemic, a lot of companies have kept their factory footprints in China.
Indeed. They've kept them in China because it was economically warranted. And I believe that they will continue working with China. China sees what happens with Russia. So while it does not take clear sides and does not join the world in condemning what is happening in Russia, by the same token, it takes the so-called, in their language, the middle ground. So China will continue to be a partner, but it will be of a different nature, not of camaraderie, but of self-interest.
Jacob Frenkel, as a former governor of the Bank of Israel, a bit of a delicate question, but I will ask it of you. What is the place of Israel to negotiate some form of better place in this war in Ukraine?
Well, I believe that the place of Israel is to be wherever it is found to be useful. And in this regard, when both the US and Russia and the Ukraine have approached the Prime Minister of Israel in a request to see if he can bring some common sense, even though the chances are not very high. Like most cases of such negotiations, Mr. Bennett decided to jump to the water and to see if he can bring a little bit of cohesion. But I can tell you, this is not an issue. It's a big, big issue. So even a progress of 1 inch is a progress.
Jacob, right now we're getting a sense that the U.S. is working on striking some sort of Iranian deal a nuclear deal, in order to unleash some of the oil supplies there. I know this is a delicate issue for Israel. Is there more willingness in the nation to allow that type of deal and actually support it, given where we are in the commodity space?
Well, we are so much now in the midst of everything, and to get into the kitchen when there are important chefs in it is never a wise move to take. But what I can say is that given the situation that the US is planning, and effectively so, to ban imports of oil, it will be extremely important to find other sources. And other sources can come from Saudi Arabia, can come from other places that have it. So this is, I will put it in this context. What is important, however, is not to forget that and this has been the position of Israel all along, that the Iranian deal, the key word is not deal, but the key word is security and safety to all concerned. And if it compromises it, then it's not a good deal. And if it does not compromise it, then it is a good deal.